Welcome to Ag Marketing IQ In Depth. Today we welcome Bree Baatz, who is with Terrain. She's a fabulous grain and oilseed analyst, and she's done a report on how important Mexico is to farmers in the U.S. and to our market opportunities, particularly in regard to livestock and livestock feed. If you could welcome Bree, and let's hear what you've got.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Pam. Thanks for your interest in the article. So yes, I'm a grain and oilseed analyst with Terrain. I've been on the team for about 18 months, and I've always had a special interest in Mexico because prior to coming to Terrain, I worked at a major Class 1 railroad. And so a lot of volume that we move across the border is via rail. And so Mexico's always had a special interest for me. And so I'm hopeful that my report provides kind of reassurance and guidance to the marketplace that Mexico's going to be a trade partner longer term with U.S. farmers.
That is very important. And how does Mexico fall in when we look at important trading partners and the impact on U.S. farmers? Where does Mexico fall in that priority list?
Yeah, so Mexico is actually our largest agricultural trading partner in 2024. They bought over $30 billion worth of agricultural commodities, and it was an increase of 7% versus the year prior. And I expect that cadence to continue in the future because we're seeing Mexico's population continue to increase for the next several decades, as well as their consumers. They are becoming wealthier, and they're moving up from kind of that lower middle class to having more disposable income. And when that happens, consumers typically improve their diet into more protein, which equates to more animals and animal feed.
That's fabulous for U.S. farmers, for sure. That kind of runs contrary to some of the things we hear about Mexico. So we hear a lot about cartels and poor people, and not so much that increasing middle class. Do you want to dive into that a little bit more for us and how that impacts meat consumption?
Certainly. So yes, Mexico definitely does have a low income population and a growing middle class, but their upper income is also very small, only 1% of their population. And so how I would categorize it is there's a lot of upside potential to get those lower income consumers into the middle class bucket. And then the other component I would say is the disposable income. So as consumers, the average age increases from, I think in my report, I called out their average age was around 19 years old. It's expected to be in that 30 to 40 year age bucket. As consumers get into that bucket, they consume more on animals and animal proteins, more so than kind of the younger demographics and even older demographics. And so that's what I am calling attention to, is that it's twofold. One, their population's increasing, and then two, they're becoming wealthier over time, which then equates to more protein in their diets.
And for U.S. farmers, that means, one, they're importing more of our beef, and two, they're also increasing their herd, and so they're feeding more grains. So what does that mean as far as market prices and opportunities for U.S. farmers?
So when I look at Mexico, the reason I think that they're such a great trading partner is we get consistent year-round purchase activity from them from multiple commodities, as you mentioned. So I'll focus today on more grain and grain product commodities. But when we look at Mexico, they are our number one corn buyer. They're number two for soybeans and soy meal. And then they're also number one for dry distiller grains. So when you think about how the U.S. has built out our ethanol production here at home and the recent crush processing capacity that's come online, as we have more of these higher value products produced here at home, Mexico is a great market for us to ship those products. Rail is a big portion of that, but a lot goes off of the Mississippi River as well via vessels to the Gulf.
And one of the things we're hearing a little bit about is maybe some of that grain demand is coming from more of the cattle being in more of the cattle being in Mexico because of New World screwworm and issues with them exporting their cattle. So talk to me a little bit about how consistent this grain demand has been for our exports.
It's been robust well before New World screwworm got discovered south of the border. And so I know that that's been a concern that's been mentioned. I just want to reassure producers that when you look at the numbers and you look at Mexico's actual export sales pace and activity, it continues to increase year over year. Now, the wild card as to the pace that they will import comes down to their domestic production. So on the corn side, they do produce a decent corn crop. However, on soybeans, they rely almost entirely on imports for soybeans to their domestic crush facilities south of the border. And then, of course, on the grain product side, a lot of those byproducts are coming from the United States as well. And so as we sit here right now, I'm watching the drought monitor, and it's kind of shaping up in that soybean territory where they do grow some beans south of the border. And so I do think in the latter half of the year, if this drought condition persists along the border, that we could see beans increase over on the border side, and then potentially on corn on the western Mexico side. That has been plagued with a drought for the past several years, and it's something to continue to watch. That is really what's been the additional catalyst on incremental imports from the United States versus kind of this disease pressure that we've been seeing with New World screwworm.
And so as we're looking at where the U.S. farmer can look for having that consistent market, we spent a lot of time, particularly this year, talking about China. And we've also got the competition from Brazil. But when it comes to Mexico, is that kind of ours to lose?
I would say it is. So as we sit here today, Mexico does not have a free trade agreement with Brazil. There have been several trade missions that Brazil has targeted, and not just Brazil. Canada has even tried to have several meetings with Mexico. I think the globe and global producers of grain and various commodities realize that the nearshoring phenomenon that we've seen, having production be closer to the demand source, which Mexico is strategically located to hit the United States market as well, that is going to be a longer term strategy for other countries. And when you look at Mexico's infrastructure, I mentioned rail. Rail is a great exclusive offering that North America has to hit that market. However, we need to watch what's happening with the port infrastructure. So yes, U.S. via the Gulf could benefit from some of that capacity expansion, but so could non-U.S. suppliers. And that's something to be aware of. And then back to China, Mexico was our largest trade partner before China joined the World Trade Organization 25 years ago. And they are going to be one of our largest trade partners well after China continues to decline their imports from the United States.
So what I'm hearing for you is it's good for us to dance with the one that brung you and keep on maintaining that relationship and working for a good relationship with Mexico.
Absolutely. And Mexico's president, Sheinbaum, she's been kind of deemed the Trump whisperer because even though there's been a lot of narrative and headlines, she's relatively been immune to new tariffs being implemented. And so I do think that cooler heads will prevail. We do have the U.S. Canada-Mexico trade agreement coming up for renew next summer. So that is something that I want farmers to pay close attention to. And I'm hopeful that through advocacy that we will continue to keep this trade partnership going for the next 16 years, which is what will be up for review at that time.
Wow, that's good news. And agricultural economy this year needs a bit of good news. So thank you, Bree, for joining us today. And thank you for bringing this information. You can read more about Bree's report and more about our relationship with Mexico at farmfutures.com, where you can also sign up for our twice-a-day newsletter that comes out every day that the market is open. Thanks again, Bree.
Thanks, Pam.